You know you need fiber for a healthy gut, but do you actually know how to get it? Quaker's been serving up fiber since 1877, with over 100 great-tasting, good source of fiber options to choose from. Whether you like old-fashioned oats, instant oatmeal, granola, or oatmeal squares, Quaker makes it delicious. So good. Get your fiber with Quaker. Shop Quaker's good source of fiber products at a store near you.
LinkedIn is pretty amazing at helping you grow your small business. We cannot stop your new clients from emailing you at 3 a.m. We can help you sell, market, and hire in one place. We cannot help you be in 3 places at once. And while we can't help you organize your calendar, LinkedIn can help you land more clients so you have a calendar to organize. Grow your small business on LinkedIn. Learn more at linkedin.com/smallbusiness.
So you're saying with Hilton Honors, I can use points for a free night stay anywhere?
Anywhere.
What about fancy places like the Canopy in Paris?
Yeah, Hilton Honors, baby.
Or relaxing sanctuaries like the Conrad in Tulum?
Hilton Honors, baby.
Ooh, what about the 5-star Waldorf Astoria in the Maldives?
Are you gonna do this for all 9,000 properties?
When you want points that can take you anywhere, anytime, it matters where you stay. Hilton, for the stay. Book your spring break now.
Hello there, Stanley Carr here. You know, I love collecting music and sports memorabilia. Want to know where you can find some? I'll tell you. Go to oldglory.com. This website features one-of-a-kind apparel from your favorite sports teams and musical artists. And I can help you get 15% off of all items. Use the code WWH135. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and spreading positivity. We're always about the positive vibes here on the show. With me right now, I've got a very special guest. He has competed for WWE and wrestled all around the world, all around the country, and is co-owner of the Wrestling with Character Live promotion. I'm pleased to welcome Nick Barbieri. Welcome, Nick, to Wrestling with Heart.
Stanley, thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it. Like I said earlier, you know, when we were designing Wrestling with Character Live, we kept seeing Wrestling with Heart pop up in the same like algorithms and with you. So it's nice to be on here.
It's my pleasure. So talk to me about your childhood and upbringing. Where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up in a rural town in Prospect, Connecticut. Very small, didn't have a high school. So, you know, during that time, we went to school with other towns, which, you know, had your friends and everything. But I had the opportunity to go to a Catholic high school, Holy Cross High School in Waterbury. So that middle school, you know, having friends that like pro wrestling there. And when I went to high school and met folks from other towns around me, probably like a dozen towns went to our Catholic school. So, you know, it was meeting other people that liked wrestling in the 90s or late 80s there. I had my own backyard federation where we used to, as soon as we got our license, we were strapping mattresses and going to parks and, VHS camcorders, so that was like kind of an era right there. At Holy Cross High School, I went from being kind of sedentary and loving wrestling, sedentary, and then when I got there, my size, you know, I got recruited for the football team right away, and that led to the football coach being the wrestling coach, and voluntarily doing that and trying wrestling, and that leading to track and field. They kept you pretty busy, and I went like to become a little bit more athletic. I was, a student athlete, like with those honors and I was a 3-sport captain. So I think my leadership grew through those experiences. I also think like going to a Catholic high school like that, you really learned about community, from making peanut butter and jellies, waking up early to make peanut butter and jellies for the homeless shelter on Thursday morning, to, just having masses and just bringing your community together to just hear the same vision and the same, expectations or bigger picture character expectations, that how our school is run. I think that was instilled in me. And, our school does, have folks that go out and become very successful. So, I think those experiences I had really just kind of like grew me to the point, where I had a skill set. I think I developed courage over that time, going from being sedentary and couldn't lift weights to kind of finding my own there, and having accolades in wrestling and placing in the states, and being an all conference and being able to compete in track and the javelin. It taught you to be that one-on-one competitor too.
So did you know at a young age you wanted to be in the wrestling business?
You know what? I think when doing the mattresses and getting in trouble and getting in trouble then, it's because they told you not to do it and that you get hurt. And it was really like our love for it, like it was our imagination. It was our creativity. It was our friends group that maybe wasn't as, cool as the kids who were going out and partying and everything. We like to meet for the pay-per-views, and, I'd always been a fan. And I think that was a piece of it. Like we encouraged each other, and we believed we can do that. And one of the folks that I met at Holy Cross High School was just incredible. So he and I were on the backyard together. So his drive and my drive and his courage to go to the Hart Brothers Wrestling School. I was still a senior. He was 1 year older than me. So he had gone to the Hart Brothers, and when I graduated, he came back. So it was like a perfect storm of meeting, and in our backyard, we were running spots and calling spots. We might not have known what we were doing, but we could do, quite a bit for not being taught. So that's self-taught. And I think that's PJ, early on, it was said in the locker room. I remember, hearing Bischoff saying, that kid's got it, that he's got it, I think that passion that fed, and it gave us opportunities.
Yeah, you really have to want it if you really want to be successful, just like with anything else. You really want to be on the top of your game. If you really want to make it in anything, you have to be dedicated to the sport, to the profession. And so growing up, who were some of your favorite wrestlers that you kind of idolized and kind of really was interested in their style and kind of appealed to you?
Well, I think early on it's the character, and when we hit upon wrestling with character, I just love something about the 70s and 80s personas that, whether it was Brutus the Barber, Beefcake, probably like the baby face that I enjoyed the most, maybe because he was cutting hair and always getting one over. But I always appreciated the honky tonk man. Like I appreciated Rick Rude, like Mr. Perfect, that's someone, Bret Hart, that more technical when. We saw a shift in wrestling style going from beat up and sell into more spots and more coordination, I think, in the ring. I always like to say that when it hit me was when the Orient Express was wrestling the Rockers. That was wrestling was starting to change there with the Rockers and the Hart Foundation, and a better storytelling was happening, and more athleticism and more of those routine spots were being used in a different way. So I saw that as an era of growth. And I think that being, trained in New England and having the opportunity to be trained by Paul Roma, who has a lineage of Mr. Fuji, getting that more currently, the Young Stallions in there with the Rockers, with the Orient, that psychology, I think, rubbed off fast on myself. And I would say PJ too.
What were some things that Paul taught you starting out in the wrestling business that you kind of took away from your time there and just you've applied to it after your time learning how to wrestle?
Well, I always say, do as I say, not as I do. I always say that as a joke, and that's something that always sticks out for me, in there when, you're questioning him or something, and, him trying to be our friends. And, we had the opportunity not only to train in the ring with him, our friendship grew with him, and him being a mentee in the ring. He owned a gym that was about 25 minutes from our house. So we got to train with him in more of a personal, not just wrestling coach. That kind of came second with us, us inspiring him maybe to open a school up because, we were a little bit of the legwork and finding help and recruit. And, you know. So I think, I think psychology of selling right away, I picked that up from Paul. Connecting with the crowd, using the ropes, being slow. In the last like year, maybe year and a half, I started getting back in the ring at the age of 52. And like I see that as one of my strong points still. So, I try to use that as a sympathy role. And, I still like, the areas that I do wrestle, I play a hippie. So I'm in like Maine and Massachusetts, and I'm making the connection with them. And I wear Crocs when I wrestle. So it's making that connection with the young kid too. So, um, I think I use that even today in my matches. And the execution of moves, I would just say, is my last point I'm going to give them. Whether it was throwing a clothesline, we had a show the other day, and when like we were in the ring and we're going over like a spot for the battle royal, and a couple kids were just throwing clotheslines that were just very weak, and that came right to me right away. Is like showing them the right way and punching through and making it more believable, and having that background. And for Wrestling with Character Live, we don't own our own wrestling school. So our ring crew are folks that, are wrestlers who like being a part of it, but maybe necessarily don't get matches on our show. So we try to fit them in as stagehands or, a battle royal or what have you, or a manager role, or et cetera.
I love that, because you're giving opportunity to the next generation, and you want the future of the wrestling business to thrive. And so it's great that you're able to do that.
Yeah. And it's a different psychology, Wrestling with Character Live, the product's much different than an independent wrestling scene. We are more like theatrics, to the point where we don't really show much of our videos, because we will reuse spots, and we reuse things to the point where we're there to entertain people, and more of a production, and we're to get them engaged. And it's not really about reinventing the wheel or trying to one up yourself. We take what worked and we try to perfect it and use it in another venue with a whole different like fan base or community base, if you would.
Mm-hmm. Well, going back to your career, let's talk about your back to your training experiences, putting the fundamentals together. Eventually, you start wrestling, make your debut. Talk to me about your first few matches, because when I've had people on the show, they talk about their experiences. It can be a little scary, can be a little intimidating, but what were some things that you were able to take under your first couple of matches and feel like you got a sense of confidence from it?
Well, you're talking 1993 for me, like in the spring, and it's my first few matches. It's like a blend in. Like there was a wrestling group called Yankee Pro over here out of Seekonk or Fall River, Massachusetts. So we had started getting ourselves, me and PJ started getting ourselves bookings in there, but like whether that happened first or whether we were all of a sudden like 3 months in of training with Paul, and he gets called as being one of the four horsemen, and they're like, you have any talent enhancement you want to travel with? And next thing I know, me and PJ are on a plane and we're headed down there, and we got the opportunity to be put up in a resort and be a part of WCW Worldwide, where my first match in WCW was against Ricky Steamboat, which is, if you say top 3 or 5 things, I definitely would put him up there. And having that my first match, you're like, amazing.
That's big exposure too, because you're seen on worldwide television, and you're getting that notoriety that people are watching. They see you, and eventually the WWE is going to call up, and they're going to offer you some exposure there as well.
I think more it was a part of networking and learning the talent enhancement. I think in that era it was tough, like PJ Walker becoming Aldo Montoya or Scott Taylor becoming Scotty 2 Hotty. Though it was tough. Gangrel would be another one where talent enhancement crossed over into a contract. It was a tough thing to do, and it was about who you know and what you could show them on the road as far as character and your dedication and your improvement and your listening and all those qualities that you do here through the training sessions. Now if you watch them, like that was really what they looked for. They didn't tell you, they were looking for it to welcome you in, and they would find a role for you is in there, or make one, or if you resembled something that was part of a creative character that they had designed, then there you go. Scotty Too Hottie. They wanted to make him a motorcycle. Someone to do tricks and all that and jump, and that was his connection. And I know with Aldo Montoya, one of the first things they presented to PJ was a soccer player from South America. So, I remember training, like PJ never touched a soccer ball in his life, and we're at the park, and here we are trying to do Pele kicks and what would try to like transfer into wrestling versus soccer. So.
Do you remember the first wrestling character that you portrayed, whether it was at live events or on television?
Sure. Like independent, my first character was GQ Garfield Quinn, and I came out to the 90210 soundtrack, and that was like my early like heel persona that I first left. Even in WCW, I was Garfield Quinn. Um, After I think I did two little trips with WCW, one at Worldwide and one around Georgia. It was like 3 or 4 places. So I'd done a few talent enhancement there, but then I got the call up for WWE living in Connecticut. It was actually WWF at the time. That's where the cross bridge over is. We got brought in for more regional talent when they were in the Northeast or 4-hour ride away. That's how they would book the talent enhancement at that time. So that was Rene Goulet or Tony Gurria or Howard Finkel, and sometimes Tim White would have something to do with that. And you'd get booked for either TVs, or sometimes on the road you get called to come in and fill for someone that maybe got injured.
The WWE at this point was huge in the Northeast because they had like different loops that they would go on, whether it was in the New York area or Philadelphia, Massachusetts. Like they had like a little circuit they would run through. And so you were a part of those. Let's talk to me about like some of your first few matches and appearances with the company at this time.
Definitely White Plains. I remember wrestling the 1-2-3 Kid there, Duke the Dumpster Drosy, Yokozuna. So I definitely had several matches that I remember, coming out of White Plains. I had the opportunity to do a dark match in Hartford Civic Center where I pinned Tony Roy, which was cool because I'd worked with him on the indie scene for quite some time. So that was nice. That was probably another highlight if you want to put in the top 5, and it was my hometown. So that was cool. Those type of experiences kind of just like, I don't know, it grew and it was a little overwhelming, I would say. And I think it just having courage for being along the ride, and it's an opportunity and getting called by this guy. And, I replaced Bob Holly when he broke his ribs. So I got to go like on and wrestle Candido, like, 4 or 5 nights, in Jersey area and Long Island. So, the opportunity, it was just posted yesterday, which was cool. It was the 31 years since I wrestled Owen Hart in Times Square, where they did the WrestleMania build-up between Lawrence Taylor and Bam Bam Bigelow. So, those are the great memories that I had.
You had talked about your match with Owen Hart, WrestleMania weekend. That was a big moment, getting the chance to be in front of a lot of people, thousands of people during that weekend fanfare, getting ready for such a mega event like that. Talk to me about that experience. What was that like?
That whole day, one of the most unique experiences ever, being in the middle of Times Square, like with traffic driving on every side of the ring. We got the call. It was Tony DeVito, Mike Bell, and PJ. We were called down as talent enhancement to do exhibitions in the middle of Times Square, like right in front of the big screen, right where it splits there. And we got called down. We went to a hotel, and there they matched us up and who we were working. Mike Bell and Tony DeVito were working Luger and the Bulldog at the time. I was supposed to work Bob Backlund. And back then, having no cell phones, they put the baby faces on one bus, they put the heels on the other bus and one across the street from another, where they actually police stop traffic for the baby faces to come on one side of the street and the heels to come on the other, which is really cool. Being in the bus, I got to, hang out with Lawrence Taylor and his entourage in there, which was, unique being 20, 21 years old. And the nerves of just, going in there. I was working Bob Backlund, so more of a simple match. And I think when you were talent enhancement, you wanted to show what you can do. But maybe when you wrestled Bob Backlund, you were more, scripted and, cross-face chicken wing, like quick type of situation. So actually, they had switched me and they had put me with Owen Hart. So they changed that while we were on the buses. So, a proud moment of mine is that was all called out in the ring and nothing was rehearsed. And the more I talk about it and the more I think about it, and even when I apply my own, when I'm wrestling someone now, it's knowing somebody. One thing they instilled with us is watching everybody and everything. And being a big fan, I watch jobber matches all the time. So I knew the move sequences that, each star had put in. So I think that is a fundamental part of why the match went off well, because I knew what he did. I know his move sequence. I know his moves and what he does and how to make it look. And I had experience with Owen training before shows, him trying new moves out and new sequences. So, there was that level of comfortability in there. So, and all in all, a great experience, something I'm very proud about. And that another thing to be proud of, that's on his DVD, The Heart of Gold. So I think that's another special accomplishment of my career there.
What was Owen like to be around backstage?
Everything they said about being a jokester and being loved, but being a jokester. I also think his character, like opening up, like to me, like I know we've been on the road and kind of separating from PJ when he got his contract versus me now being my own talent enhancement, like from Connecticut, traveling by myself now. And Mike Bell and Tony were great friends of mine, but sometimes I wasn't with them all the time. So establishing myself and my own personality, like that's something I appreciated him about, like joking, getting to travel with him and Louis Spicoli, which was, just comedy and jokes and just pranks and, kind of learning just to enjoy life and making time on the road go fast. Jeff Jarrett was another one there where, it was always a running joke or always feeding on something you thought was serious, but it was really like intended to be a joke. And, just having that, like, that building that bond, being young and being on the road with these guys who were, folks folks I watched on television for years and read in magazines. And
now, how long were you with the company?
So my last enhancement match was in 1997. I just did a show with Scott Taylor the other day, and I spoke to him about like talent enhancement and that changing in wrestling. And there was really a time period in that 97, 98 where Jim Cornette took over more of the, that production, and you saw Sal Sincere and TL Hopper and Tracy Smother and the Goon come in, and they ended up becoming the talent enhancement for, some time, where it never went back to just having Mario Mancini and Dwayne Gill and Brian Costello and Barry Horowitz, like Iron Mike Sharp. Like that era kind of went away with that transition, and it did turn more into going there to be a security guard, and maybe you'll get an Ellsworth opportunity in there. So, but those are few and far between now where they do those true enhancement matches.
Talk to me about the need for enhancement talent for today, because do you feel like there's a place for that kind of stuff?
Yes. And that's producing our own shows. 6 matches. We want to be done in 2 hours and 10 minutes. And every match is telling a story in the grand scheme of the show.
So good, so good, so good. New markdowns up to 70% off are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. And that means so many new reasons to rack.
Because I always find something amazing.
Just so many good brands.
Because there's always something new.
Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
And it's knowing your role, not going out there in the first match, going double time, exhausting the crowd, throwing everything in the kitchen sink, and then there's nothing left for later. Or now they're exhausted, in the match 5, because that first group. So I think there's a need for it on the show here and there to build somebody up. I think, like I mentioned earlier, it's getting perfect at your craft. Like you want people to see your move like taken well one time before it's maybe inserted into, a 15-minute spot fest and, this intense, complicated storyline. So, the simple storyline, there's a place for it. And, I've been watching like some old wrestling. I watched Bad News Brown against Brutus Beefcake, and just watching a simple spot where Beefcake gets the upper hand and he goes and takes, Bad News and gives him a big headbutt in the corner, and he goes to sell to the crowd and fires up, and meanwhile behind him Bad News Brown is shaking it off because he's selling how hard his cranium is, and he elbows Beefcake and throws Beefcake's head into the turnbuckle, and Beefcake falls to the ground and selling his head, and like that simplicity, it's needed somewhere. And sometimes I'll hear like people say, oh, that was a super indie, and I don't know if it's out there, and I get it. But I like to tame it and have more of that show within a show. And again, going back, that's wrestling with character. That's what we do when we design the format. It's something for everybody. Yeah.
It is a variety show. There's got to be something that anybody can enjoy, whether they like the character work or the work rate kind of stuff. Your big man, small man kind of environment. You want to have a little bit of something that can appeal to as many people as possible. So you started up wrestling with character. At what point did you decide I want to start my own school or start my own promotion?
Well, that's April is 2 years, so we're approaching our 2-year anniversary where me and my business partner, Kurt Adonis, this isn't the first time we started a wrestling federation in like 1999. After I graduated college, I went and started a federation called Millennium Wrestling that ran for about 2 years in the Northeast, Connecticut and Massachusetts. And we had 2 wrestling schools that were working together, and it was character-based. Currently, some of those folks from 25, 26 years ago are still a part of our team, which is like great bonds and great friendships and just picking up where you left off. Like it's so great to have those connections and being able to include these folks in our shows, whether they're reffing or they're backstage or some of them are still wrestling for us. So it's kind of cool to get back in there and have these moments with them again. And, it's just solid friendships. And when you talk about positive vibes, when you come to our show, that's what it is, whether it's in the back room, whether the veterans are there and we're giving them the red carpet treatment and treating them well, to that carrying over into our fans. It's positive vibes when you start walking in. Our pre-show's interactive. We're engaging our characters, and the baby faces are signing autographs, and the heels are coming in and showing their true colors, and kind of giving that mic time storyline to establish it without being it on the show. So that it makes us a little bit unique and all that.
You're trying to suspend disbelief and trying to have everything kind of stay, without blurring those lines, so to speak. You want to get people to believe in what's going on. And so once they figure out what's happening, they're invested in the stories, and then they'll come to the next show.
And there's bully heresy. Well, there's also been bully Channing, and there's been bully Britt, and so those characters can be recycled because they are larger than life, and you could associate with them. We've had family. There's mad scientists. We've had a couple different mad scientists, Dr. I Spite and Professor U Spite. And, we're able to be flexible in our characters, doing that, having, people willing to go under a mask to play electrolysis, but here's Sammy Diaz, the belt collector. So our talent has grown in being open-minded to that vision of making wrestling fun again, and that cosplay atmosphere, a little bit more of work rate and character versus violent wrestling.
Have you invited any notable talent to come make appearances?
We've had some big names come, and that's growing into our business model. We had a residency at the VFW in New Britain, Connecticut, where we collaborated with them to help bring community into their environment. The VFWs now they're fighting to stay open, so to rent their hall out and to get people to understand that you can rent their hall out. That was our community connection with them for the last 2 years there. And that helped us build our concept to now we're running high school shows, where our first show was last November, where we had Killer Cross versus Richard Holiday as the main event. We brought in Jake the Snake, the Mountie. So we had some of the Hall of Fame along with current relative wrestlers, in there that, we sold over 800 tickets in there, and we were able to raise a few $1,000s, just in ticket gate for the athletic program at Wilcox Tech. So that model's starting up. We just ran a show March 20th there for the Terryville PTA, the Parent Teacher Organization, where we helped raise a few $1,000s, and they did really well at their concession there. That brought them together to raise funds for their cause. And having the show, we had Ted DiBiase, Brutus Beefcake, Devon Dudley, and there's a little convention before our show where you get to do meet and greets, and then there's that pre-show where we're integrating the wrestlers meeting and meeting our undercard wrestlers that are telling the storylines and making the bigger connections for the fans. Having trivia, having musical chairs, making it a fun time, almost like some of the, banana ball of wrestling, I want to say.
Yeah, you're making it more interactive, something that people are looking forward to and are excited about. And so that's fascinating. It's really fascinating. Now, you talked about some of the stuff that you've been involved with, but I want to ask are there any particular causes that you, Nick, are very passionate about?
Unified sports has been something that has really, as I've gotten older, as being a teacher, I was a former athletic director, and I was a track coach, wrestling, rugby coach, so many of my years, I just was educating, being that student athlete for well over 12 years, getting multiple degrees to achieve that goal, to get in there. And at the end of my teaching career, as I'm finishing up and finding a new transition and getting back into wrestling as a producer and an owner and all that, is unified sports has been something that brought me to starting this wrestling with character. And the more I learned about I saw unified sports from that area of social emotional learning that they were talking about, and promoting sportsmanship and inclusion at a different level. I remember 15 years ago, awarding these athletes, giving them the same honors and as some of the other sports teams, and including them in the banquets, and really fighting for years for inclusion, and having the wrestling be able to support groups. We get businesses to donate money for tickets so that we give people that don't have financial or travel opportunities, we're able to allow them to come to our shows to experience the imagination and let them see our product for free. And that's the warming piece that we love them. That's a string of what wrestling with character is all about. My business partner, Kurt, is also a challengers coach. So unified sports at a bigger picture is underneath Special Olympics, but it's for schools to have a Special Olympic program. Once you get out of school, that's where we go to Special Olympics. There's adapted programs too that students could be a part of through their park and recs. And one of those is a challengers program where we've done numerous fundraisers. My business partner, Kurt, is a coach for one of those fundraising groups in Bristol, Connecticut, and we're trying to connect and tie them into other challengers groups so that they're building their community within each other. So that's been a little under what we've been doing under our wrestling promotion, and being able to be generous to them. We work with the Beautiful Lives Project. That's been an eye-opening experience for me. They were a local group that's national. They've grown at that level, and they've helped us out through 4 shows where, we've been able to bring in all their members. We built bigger connections with the CCARC, which is our, community folks that are older that don't get these opportunities. Being a part of the Rotary now with our group, that's really like that unified sports thing is really like made me look for it, to want to bring in a clientele that doesn't have to pay for our product, and give them that opportunity. So it all kicked off with unified sports, and that's when Kurt and I joined up. I went to a unified sports game. It was a Yard Goats game over here. We have minor league baseball, and I'm all excited to get the kids together. This is a field trip. Like, we all get to bond and sit here, and we had a large group of kids, and we didn't realize that this was marketed more to go to the merchandise and concession stand. So that made me a little bit bitter towards, we need something that's going to engage these kids and get them to like believe and use their imagination for 90 minutes and not be caught up with marketing and all this. So when Kurt came to me that he was ready to move on and start his own wrestling group, that's where we came together. And, having a background, I trained him when he was first wrestling, and this spun into a business model and a business plan, and we stuck to our gun from every shows where we raised money from juvenile diabetes. We raised money for little league teams. We've raised money for challenger groups. So we've been able to donate to the community and welcome them in one way or another, and invite them back. We did a youth wrestling group, Dirty Den Wrestling. So, trying to work with the community to spread our name, and it's really turned into a positive where other sports programs and other PTAs are now reaching out to us because they saw like what we're about. So that's super rewarding to be able to see that, all this effort's making an impact somewhere, and that it's connecting communities together, and that's a base. Like, excuse me, I want you guys to come together to be at our show. I don't want you to be parts or whatever. You don't have to like wrestling to come here. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think going to wrestling shows, it is a community outreach event because you're bringing people together. You have something that a lot of people can find that they have in common. And so once they're there, they can take that hour, 2, 3 out of their day to get everything off their minds and enjoy just entertainment. And once they do, they hear the feedback, and then they return to the next show.
Yeah, and I will tell you, in our last few shows outside the high school ones at the VFW, where we have our normal crowd of a few hundred there consistently coming, it was great to start seeing the dads like smiling at watching their son and daughters engaged and cheering. It was, and sometimes almost watching the dad say it was okay. Hey, it's okay to scream and yell, like get off your hands. You're not in front of a computer now, like express yourself. So that's a really nice part that I saw. It was, knowing that Santa's real, like that is exciting. So, it's putting that part in there that's heartwarming of the entertainer in me, and being open myself to being silly and, being outlandish, and trying to one up myself and making people laugh. Or how can I do that?
What is it about giving back to the community that gives you the most joy?
I think it's going back to teaching, like as a 3-sport athlete and a coach. Like, you might be getting paid for all that, but it's another full-time job, coaching on top of your full-time job. And it's the relationships that you build. It's bringing a team together for a cause and have goals to have adversity and fight through them, but teaching kids those lessons, that's what the exciting part of coaching was. And, I think when you're a younger coach too, you got to snap out that winning isn't important. It is about those lessons, and you can't micromanage the kids, and, they're going to fail. And it's like teaching them that you can't keep making this mistake or you're not going to get to your goal. So, being a coach and a phys ed teacher and being an athletic director, that 26 years of doing that, it's given me a skill set to produce it and write it and instill it in the product that I try to produce. And being conscious, when I'm meeting with a superintendent now, or I'm meeting with a parent teacher organization or an athletic director, I could really relate to where they're coming from. And like, we're not in this to take advantage of your community. We're not here to sell you a show. We're here to collaborate with you, take a lead, and checks and balances that we're both doing the right things to fill this place. Us outside the community and the regions around it, and you in your community and your neighbors and your friend network. And if we could do that together, our collaboration is going to make this a big successful event. So I think that's what separates us a little bit in our business model and our connection to the community. It's a part of our vision and a part of our philosophy.
You've talked about teaching young kids sports for several years. Have any of these kids thought about possibly entering in the wrestling business and potentially working with you?
There have been a few along the way, and I think, in Connecticut and coming around, like, it wasn't like you weren't always popular to be a fan of wrestling. Sometimes it was looked down upon. So, when I became a athletic director, there was, very little video from the time I was out there, but there was some. So some of that would pop up, and, unfortunately, some of the kids used it in a more condescending manner versus, me being able to embrace it to the point where I can now, to be like, I wrestled Owen Hart and Ricky Steamboat, and, you can't really, take me down, So there was a little bit of like having that, like, the blob from Billy Madison, like having that like feeling versus being able to embrace it like I am now. So that's a little bit of my own growth with that, and appreciating it for what it's worth.
Where do you see Wrestling with Character Live going? What are your ultimate goals for the future of the brand?
Well, and two is, as we take time to step back and we get to enter the summer, one, I definitely see us as a seasonal type of company. Being able to produce a show like we do, I could see us running a beach town where we could come in for a few days and run the same show like a carnival. So, in the summer months, we have that flexibility to offer family entertainment, not really under our community model, but going out there to provide entertainment during the summer when folks are looking for something to do in beach towns. So that's been a little bit of that's been on the back burner, but I see that coming up. But, it's in the fall and the spring, we've identified the weekends and the days that are the best to run shows. And in Connecticut, you can get from one side to the other within 90 minutes, 2 hours. So, trying to be strategic, not to like, oversaturate the area and do too many shows, and be helpful, and, maybe being able to expand out to a Massachusetts and, a Rhode Island type of scenario, because there are commissions in New York and New Hampshire. So, knowing those things, you just got to be business minded. But, our two high school shows, or two shows that we've produced with that concept of doing a convention and a wrestling show together, we have 4 more on the back burner, and the last 2 want to, continue next year. So now it's a different strategy. I think we now have control versus, the boosters were controlling us on dates. So now we say, hey, we have these dates open, and here's how we're going to fit it. So, we're growing in that, and it's nice because, there's definitely times you want to quit. Like when you look at some of the financial things and the mistakes you make in that area, or some of the bridges that you burn, or maybe, someone isn't happy that you don't use them or book them anymore, or don't book them on every show. So, it's not a fun business in regards to some of the things that, do happen as a result of being a businessman, and having to do what's best for your business. And there's a budget, and, for my hard work of, the time we put in, we want to let the company make some money to be able to survive and continue and operate, and from insurance to taxes to the accountant, like there's these other like budget items that some of the wrestlers I don't think realize that you're extending yourself upon to be successful. So it's the drive not to quit, and to believe in the product and see like the goal. It's like right there, like it's gonna happen, and we learn from our mistakes, and hopefully we get better, and we get an opportunity, or something happens like that. So that's the strife that you keep going.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, but if you love what you do, they say you'll never have to work a day in your life. So hopefully with Wrestling with Character Live, things will continue to get better and prosper, and you'll see the fruits of your labor continue to grow.
Well, that's what it's about, and being persistent and reminding yourself, all that's, you're hearing the grit and persistence, and you're like, this is just part of the journey of getting to that point. And, in 2 years, be proud of what you did. You're ahead of the curve. Like, be sensible about that, and just you have time, regroup, look for some mentorship, and make sure you're doing it right. And, it's got to go back. How can you make money? And then start working backwards off of that.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Nick, I want to say thank you for coming on to Wrestling with Heart. It means a lot to me and to my listeners and viewers that are watching this on YouTube. Where can people find out more about you and about Wrestling with Character Live on social media?
Well, Nick Barbieri under there, posted under there. My name on Facebook that they could contact me. Instagram, it's at WWC_Nick. That's where you'll see a lot of the Wrestling with Character Live, which you can go there, Wrestling with Character Live, all one word, whether it's Insta, Facebook, or there's another platform there, YouTube, Facebook, and then I don't think we're on X yet. I know we're started a TikTok, but we're growing. We're a little bit older. One of us, upper 40s and 52. We want to master what we know, and now we're growing out, which is part of that realization of expanding ourselves. Oh, the website. Let's go back to the first form, wrestlingwithcharacterlive.com. That would have all our fundraising information, how you can contact us, and our characters and things we've done, and publicity, etc.
All right. Well, thanks again, Nick, and you're more than welcome to come back.
Awesome. I appreciate it. So thank you for having me.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.